The content you're about to enjoy comes from the archives of The Best You. We're devoted to the very best in personal development, with a platform and resources dedicated to inspiring and changing people's lives. At The Best You, we work with the world's leading writers and trainers on the evolution of the self, and people whose journeys have been affected by their work and words. These Best You EXPO talks are recorded in front of a live audience in a live event. We highly recommend that you focus on the message. As they say, what you focus on expands. Enjoy. Charlee Brazier. The title of her talk is The Significance of Being a Veteran. Hear how Charlee's life-changing experiences in the military became her ultimate foundation. She created something positive out of trauma, publishing and inspiring a magazine to save lives through creative expression. Inspiring, very inspiring story from a lady obviously with a phenomenal track record. Thank you so much. Enjoy.
Hi, I'm Charlee Brazier for the Best of You EXPO. I'm here to talk about what the significance of being a veteran is and how important it is for us to be who we are no matter what we are. Right now, I want to talk about my company, CB & Company, and Significant Magazine. Significant Magazine is a magazine that I created as a project through CB & Company. CB & Company is basically a company that I created to raise funds for at-risk veterans, domestic violence victims, and education. My idea was to take all my talents and put them into one and raise funds through creative expression. We are the Tennessee magazine that saves lives through creative expression. We do fashion shows, we do art shows, films, documentaries, we do dinner theaters, you name it, CB & Company and Significant Magazine does it. We are here to save lives of veterans, again, education, help with education, and victims of domestic violence. The reason I started the company was because years ago I became a disabled veteran when I came down with lupus, fibromyalgia, and Hashimoto's disease. Hashimoto's disease is something that affects your thyroid. Everybody knows what lupus is, and everybody knows what fibromyalgia is. I decided that I needed to fight back and find a way to get healthy. So I started doing my research, and I started talking to my number one fan, my mother, who was a nutritionist. And she taught me how to eat healthier and how to make healthier decisions, and it made me a better person and put me in better shape. So the company, I found other veterans that were like me to join CB & Company and to write for the magazine so we could help other people like us. Now, I have writers from all around the country, and they're from the ages of 14 all the way up to, we won't say what age group, but they write about everything. And how I created that magazine, which is Significant Magazine, is I went through all the successful magazines around the country. As a reporter, I know research, first of all. And I went and looked at all the magazines, and I said, what makes them successful? I took each individual magazine, like Reader's Digest, Time Magazine, and Life Magazine, things like that. Magazines, Glamour, even Glamour Magazine. I said, what makes these magazines come successful? And that's what I basically put in my one magazine. So everybody of any age group, any ethnicity could open that magazine and find something they could relate to. So if you would like to go and look at that, you can go to www.significantmagazine.com. Now, my reason for being here, too, is also to teach people to make better choices when they have to deal with illness and battle with anything like post-traumatic stress disorder, which I also acquired in the military, okay? Now, my way of dealing with post-traumatic stress was writing. I started using creative expression to relieve my stress from all the things that I had, and it helped a great deal. So I also created a workshop called Communicating Through Film. Right now, we're working with Public Affairs on Fort Campbell. We're working with partnering with the NAACP and Health Radio in the UK. And what we're doing is we're doing a workshop called Communicating Through Film. We're working with Christopher Coppola. He's here at one of the colleges. He works at the college here he's a director of the film programs here. He's also the nephew of not Christopher Coppola, I'm sorry, Francis Coppola of The Godfather. Now, I took one of his workshops back in the early 2000s, and he taught me how to make movies. I took my skills and I put that into communicating through film and collaborated with Christopher Coppola and said, this is what we need to do with our kids that have post-traumatic stress disorder, because everybody's addressing the issues that soldiers have with post-traumatic stress. They're addressing the issues that veterans have with post-traumatic stress, but nobody has addressed the issues that children have with post-traumatic stress. So the purpose of communicating through film is for children to be able to sit down, journalize what their issues are, and also turn their life and their experiences in the military into a short film. And Mr. Coppola is going to help me do that. I think it's going to be a program that's going to not only be in Tennessee, but I think that we'll probably take that throughout the country. I think it's going to be a very big project, and it's going to bring awareness to children with post-traumatic stress and emotional disorders, because I don't think people understand what the issue is with children in general that are involved in military life. Children that are kids that are in military life in general have a lot of stresses. Military life is not easy. It's not easy for adults, so it's not easy for children. So I know this workshop is going to be very educational. It's going to be therapeutical. And it's going to take kids out of the office and into the film workshops. And what better way to do it? I think kids are going to be very excited about putting their thoughts into journalizing their thoughts and putting it on paper, turning it into screenplays and turning it into movies. And these movies can be big fundraisers for what we support, which is, again, domestic violence, education, and at-risk veterans. So another thing that I'd like to talk about is I don't think that people understand that post-traumatic stress disorder can be generational. Now, I come from a family of 10 sisters and 5 brothers. And yes, they're all mine. No stepsisters. 10 sisters and 5 brothers. And a lot of us are military. And by talking to my brothers and sisters and going through a lot of the stresses that I went through, I found that post-traumatic stress goes from family to family to family. I mean, some of my sisters, their kids have it, they have it, their husbands that are military had it, and so people don't understand how it's affecting the kids. My parents had it, their parents before them that were in the World War II. My dad was not in Vietnam, but in the Korean War. So I think that people don't understand that there's your new veteran and there's your new age veteran. The older veterans like myself, I have to admit that I am an older veteran. I haven't been to war. I did 1 term in the military, but we are different than the new veteran. We all have one thing in common, though. We all have post-traumatic stress or have some type of disability that's held us back in life. I got a wake-up call in 2013 when my heart stopped. I ended up in the hospital in New Mexico, where I was living at the time, and my heart stopped. I was attacked, and when I woke up, I couldn't remember anything. That includes my art. I've been drawing since I could pick up the spoon, as my mom used to say. I couldn't remember how to draw. I couldn't even remember my mother's name. What I could remember was my son, Joey, who was 9 years old at the time. So when I came back to, I had to deal with my post-traumatic stress. I had to touch bases with why I had post-traumatic stress. And I had to, after I finished going to counseling, I learned that I had had post-traumatic stress since I was younger. And I had been blacking out incidents since I was probably about 8 years old. I'm 53 now. That's how long this happened to me when I was 50. That's how many years I dealt with post-traumatic stress, and I never knew I had it. So when I got in the military, I acquired post-traumatic stress way worse than I ever could imagine. And I didn't know until my heart stopped that I had been blacking out my whole life for years. For years. Had no idea I had been blocking out traumas and incidents in my life periodically, consistently, until I lost my complete memory and I couldn't remember anything. When I went to counseling and I got better, I start remembering all the domestic violence that I went through with my husbands that were in the military. And yes, I said husbands because I had a couple of them. I called them my handicaps. But anyway, I dealt with that, and that alone made me start saying I have a problem. Okay? I wanted to get up and I wanted to tell people about it and talk about it. Unfortunately, I couldn't walk at the time. My doctors kept telling me, you can't walk because it's your post-traumatic stress. This was after my heart stopped. Could not walk. I had experienced not using my extremities or being able to walk years ago when my lupus flared up back in the early 90s. I couldn't walk. And they used to tell me, just try not to get out of bed. There was no cure for it. So, of course, when it happened to me again after I got attacked and my heart stopped, I said, well, I'm going to listen to the doctors this time. Doctors start telling me you can't walk because you think you can't walk. It's your post-traumatic stress. There is nothing physically wrong with you. Well, I'm going to tell you what I told my 10 sisters and 5 brothers. I'm not crazy. I would love to get up and walk right now, and I can't. I told my doctors, you guys need to call in orthopedics. You need to call in a different psychiatrist, because I know that if I could walk, I would get out of this bed. They did not believe me until they got an orthopedic doctor in there, okay? After the doctors came in there, again, the best thing that happened to me was going into the VA hospital in 2013. They evaluated me from top to bottom, head to toe, internal medicine, everybody, even orthopedics, and they found that I did have something wrong with my legs. I lost the feeling in my legs because I had a spinal cord injury. And I also had sciatica. It made me wake up and tell myself, keep believing in yourself and hear your own voice. You know what I mean? If I had to listen to the doctors, I wouldn't be walking today. I wouldn't be. So what's that tell you? The power of suggestion. What does the power of suggestion do to you? You know what I mean? What if I would have listened to them when they told me that I could not walk and it was due to my post-traumatic stress? I would not have gotten the proper treatment, and I probably would have been the way that I was in my early 20s and early 30s. I was bedridden for my early 20s and 30s and lost most of my life to illness because they told me that same thing when I was ill back then. They kept telling me it's in your head, so I couldn't do anything about it. So when I became bedridden or incapacitated, I just stayed there. So I didn't have a life really in my 20s or 30s. So after 2013, when I lost the feeling in my legs and it happened to me again, I said, I know there's something wrong with me. Why did I know that? Because my mother taught me to be very strong, my parents in general. My father was from Selma, Alabama. He marched with Martin Luther King. My mother was from Chicago. Both of them are deceased now. My mother was from Chicago. Her father, my grandfather, ran a press. My grandfather worked with Irish doctors because he was Irish and Blackfoot and African American. He ran an underground newspaper and worked with the Underground Railroad. That's probably where I get all my writings from. I'm a reporter, journalist, artist, fashion designer, and filmmaker. And that's probably where my inspiration comes from. Now, my mother's always told me all my life, be strong and remember who you are. But listen to your body. Listen to your signs of your body. Because she was a nutritionist. I did that. My father taught me how to fight. Again, he marched with Martin Luther King. Okay, now, by marching with Martin Luther King, my dad, discrimination didn't hurt. It hurt him, but he didn't let it debilitate him. I almost did. Because what I'm not telling you is when I got attacked, one of the reasons I was attacked was also because I was a veteran. There were a lot of veterans, especially veterans of color, in New Mexico that were being targeted in New Mexico. And I was one of them. You know, I would meet people one day at the VA and they would be in the newspaper the next day from death. We made the CBS News in 2013 because there were so many veterans that were being killed over there in New Mexico. I was the one who made it out to tell the story. Now, I'm telling you, my strong background with my parents is what made me wake up when my heart stopped and say, Figure out what is wrong with you. Don't listen to anybody else. Listen to your body. I thought about all the challenges I had been through and how I lost most of my life to illness, domestic violence. Over 20 years I went through domestic violence. 3 different marriages. Yes, I said 3. Why do you think I went through 3 different marriages and experienced domestic violence over and over and over? Because every time I spoke, no one listened. Not even my own family, with 10 sisters and 5 brothers. Everybody turned their back on me. I was a reporter. I was an actress at the time. I worked with Mariah Carey, John Travolta. I worked with all kind of people. You name it, I did it. Old Charlie did everything. All that stopped. All that stopped when domestic violence came back into my life and illness. So when I woke up in the hospital and I got the doctor's attention and they finally came to me and gave me a diagnosis, I said, I'm going to make sure this does not happen to anybody else. Most importantly, I'm going to help people. I'm going to create an empire. The nurses looked at me when I was in the hospital. My fellow veterans looked at me when I was in the hospital. There are even new veterans in there. They were in their 20s, 30s, and here comes old me. And they had bad post-traumatic stress from the war. Some of the women had been assaulted. He was having 2 parents in the military with post-traumatic stress. After doing my research, I found that it is generational and it continues to go in circles on and on and on. So many people don't understand the effects that it's having on our future leaders. If it hadn't been for Christopher Coppola and me going to that workshop with him teaching me how to make movies, I think I wouldn't understand how therapeutical it would be to children. Because Christopher goes around the country and he also teaches children film. You know, except he does it in a different way. He just teaches it as an art. I'm confident that our workshop, Communicating Through Film, is going to be something that when I would travel all around the country doing with kids from the military to inspire them to get through trauma and things like post-traumatic stress. It's going to make them better. It's going to make the families better that are affiliated through the military. And it's going to make the soldier better. If you think about it today, how many veterans do you see in the news? And soldiers do you see in the news with post-traumatic stress that have done horrific things? Why do you think that is? We are not getting the proper treatment. I don't know how to express this more. Our children can't get help if we can't get help. I got help because I pushed. My parents made me like this. When I used to make movies, they used to tell me I was like a drill sergeant. I was so militant. I would knock on everybody's door saying, it's time to get to the set, get to the set, get to the set. I hustled. It's very militant, and I'm still militant. I'm very hard. They used to call me the Rock in college. I'm not proud of it, but it's who I am. And I'm happy that I am the way that I am because I wouldn't have gotten through this and my son wouldn't have gotten through it. Now, what I did with my own son, he's 16 now, he started writing at the age of, I think, 9 or 10. He was also an artist. I taught him to draw. I taught him to write. And he writes a section in the magazine now called Inspirational Teens. He tells kids news. The reason he does that is because I said if it helped me, it can help him. I had him and other girls that write. It's a section called Being a Girl. They write for the magazine because I think it's going to help them. Now, what I do is they're getting therapy and they don't even know it. I give them subjects to write on that I know that they struggle with, that are related to post-traumatic stress or just adolescence in general. They have no idea why they're getting these subjects or why they're telling their stories. They just write, and they're very good writers. But I notice that the more they write, the better they get. So we do internships at Significant Magazine, too. And part of the reason for that is also to inspire them to heal through creative expression. So I would behoove all you guys to read my, I'm going to pass out my brochures because I want you guys to look at these brochures. And I want you to understand what I do and why I do it.
Having promoted more than 600 speakers and more than 65,000 people attend my seminars and courses and workshops and expos, having read so many books and attended so many courses, I really realized that the basics of personal, professional growth is based on the power of the question. Asking yourself empowering questions. Read my new book, The Question, Find Your True Purpose. It's based on my work, 30 years of entrepreneurship, all the experiences that I have, my manifesto, and what's really important. So for more information, go to www.thequestion.co.
I'm going to take the microphone down to Linda. Tell them what you do for the magazine, for Significant Magazine.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Linda Steele. So for Significant Magazine, I write articles that pertain to mostly seniors, and I address some medical issues that they may be struggling with, and assure them that they can still get to the gym even though they may have some issues that they're a little afraid to work with. And I also tell some stories, some motivational stories about other seniors that I've worked with who've had issues that they've had to overcome, injuries, surgeries, and so forth. So that's what I do for the magazine. It's a great magazine. I love it.
Tell them about how you're educated in health and what your experience is in health.
I have a degree in the field from DePaul University. I hold 9 different certifications, which qualifies me as an elite trainer. I am a specialist in nutrition, senior fitness, and exercise therapy. Exercise therapy is kind of like what you would do if you have an injury or something and you go to physical therapy. After physical therapy, they kind of get you out the door. They are able to get you to a point where you could work with your daily activities, but I bring you a little bit past that. And I'm also a co-host on UK Health Radio, which she mentioned a few times. And I've been a co-host on other LA Talk Radio and the Women's Broadcast TV Network. I'm a model. I model bikini, fitness, fashion, so I do a lot of stuff.
And Linda is based out of Chicago. I passed out my magazine so you guys can get an idea of what it looks like. Now, it's an online flip book. Our goal is to print nationally and go direct mail. That's what my goal is, and I'll make it. You guys talk to me about 2 more years or less. I bet you I'll make it there. Okay, now, you guys notice that on the last issue we have Mrs. Siri. Her name is Alicia Siri. Alicia is paraplegic. She's in a wheelchair. She can't use any of her extremities. She can't walk. She was born that way. She came up with an idea called Fashion is for Everybody. Now, what she does is she has a company in Nashville. It's the only company around the world like this. She takes people that are disabled and puts them on the runway. Please go to her website. Her website is Fashion is for Everybody. Go to her website and look at what she does. She is the first person, I think, in history to do this. And I know my research. I have not seen anybody around the country like her at all. She goes and she does a fashion show. She has women on the runway that are in wheelchairs, and some of the women, I mean, they're women that you wouldn't think were disabled. They have unseen disabilities. My point is that she makes people with disabilities feel beautiful. It took me a long time to feel the way that I am. People walk up to me all the time and say, "You're beautiful." I did not feel beautiful. I was sick. The majority, 80% of the time, I was in pain or sick from fibromyalgia, lupus, or Hashimoto's. Now, I still work out. I was an athlete before I went in the military. When I first got in there, they looked at me like, "Who made you?" I could run with the guys. I had 5 brothers. I was not prissy like the rest of my sisters. I was a tomboy. I was making bow and arrows, and I was running. I have a nephew right now just like me. Well, not like me now, but I was a runner. I ran a 6-minute mile. I was very good at running. I have a nephew right now that's going to make it to the Olympics. her to them. So by them helping her, they acknowledge
The deadline seems to be